Hey there guys, what's going on? My name is Manthias, and in this video we're going to take a little bit of a look into blacksmithing as it currently stands on the Shadowlands beta. Now the blacksmithing has had a few changes since the BFA days, and one of the most prominent ones is there is no longer all this horrible rank 1, rank 2, rank 3 business for almost every single one of the items you have to craft. So things are not locked behind super difficult reputation grinds. You get access to a lot of the profession quite quickly, quite easily. So let's take a little look into what's good and how we can use this to make some gold. And more importantly, whether you should pick it up in when Shadowlands launches. Now, as a blacksmith, you make gear. That is one of the primary things that you're going to do with your blacksmith. It's been the same throughout all of the expansions, no changes there. Starting off with the ceremonious gear. This is basically your leveling gear. This is going to be the plate gear that you're going to be able to create not only for yourself, but for other people to either give to friends, guild members, even sell on the auction house. Big advantage this time, everything is bind on equip. None of this bind on pick up crafted stuff anymore. No need to be scrapping items to get your resources back if it has the wrong secondary stats on. We've got a whole load more flexibility as it currently stands. Ceremonious gear is going to be your leveling gear. You pick all of this up really quickly. You only need 30 skill points to start picking up these. You get the sabatons and the arm guards straight away when you pick up the profession. You very quickly get the rest of the gear, and this is the gear that's going to level your own character up through Shadowlands. One thing you will notice is there's optional reagents. This gives the professions a little bit more of a potential longer life than what they've had in previous expansions. Quite often after the first patch, professions are done. The gear that you craft is almost completely pointless. The item level is way too low considering the current content. After one patch, after two patch, after three patch, Blizzard have to keep implementing stuff into the game to give some life back to the professions. This time we have the ability to use optional reagents, and dependent on the quality of the gear depends on the quality of the reagents that you can use to it. So there is still limits to this, guys. So the leveling gear, as you can see, as default, let's take a look. You're looking at item level. Level 50 requirement, level 51 requirement, 53, 52, 52, 53. So basically all of this base level green items you can make by the time you're level 53. What you can do though to make it relevant up until you hit max level, and in some cases even beyond, is add some of these crafters marks. Crafters marks are new items that blacksmiths can make. The blacksmiths are not the only people that can make these, other professions can make them as well, but they simply increase the item level of the gear that you're crafting. So you could take a ceremonious helm, you could add on a crafter's mark 2, and instead of that item being a item level 112 with a 53 level requirement, you stick a crafter's mark 2 in there, and then all of a sudden you have to be level 57 to use the gear, but it's boosted the item level all the way up to 165. Now 165 is on par with normal dungeon gear, I believe. In fact, it may even be heroic dungeon level gear. And when you start leveling up that blacksmithing and you start unlocking some of these higher, stronger, better pieces of gear, these by default obviously are going to be more expensive to craft. They require more ingredients, but not only do you get the ability to sort of adjust the item level accordingly to that gear, you also get to specify exactly what secondary stats you have on that gear as well. You can add missives which are currently created by scribes using the inscription profession, and you can specify up to 2 secondary stats for that piece of gear to guarantee that you get the right stats you need. Now, the really clever goblins out there will take a look through the different classes that are going to use this gear and find out which stats are more beneficial to more classes. If three different classes are all wanting to have haste on their gear, then it makes sense to use the missives of haste more frequently. If nobody wants versatility on their gear, then don't go putting the missives of versatility on there. Be a little bit smart with it, and you can really start making some gear that is going to sell well on the auction house and make you a lot of profit. Let's talk a little bit more about the crafters marks then. You'll see here that there's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different crafters marks. and they all will increase. They will all set the item level and the level requirement of the gear to different levels. So the novice one, for example, is really for you to be able to craft gear and set it so that it's item level 50. You can use it straight away when stepping into Shadowlands. Only going to be item level 100. Not going to be great by the time you actually get into Shadowlands, but it's a great starting point. The interesting things to note is that you're going to get Crafters Mark 1 and Crafters Mark 2 quite quickly, but if you want to start getting the higher quality Crafters Mark 3, which will push the item level to 180, and Crafters Mark 4, which will actually push the item level all the way up to item level 200, which for reference is going to be the equivalent of normal mode raiding gear. To access these, this is when you are going to have to start doing a little bit of rep grinding. Court of Harvesters, you need to be exalted with those guys to be able to pick this up, so that's going to take some people a little while. It's the Revendreth, it's the last zone that you have to level through on your first trip through Shadowlands at least. Once you get those guys exalted, you'll be able to convert your crafted gear, whichever one of these Shadow Steel items you choose to craft, you throw on there a Crafter's Mark 4, and then all of a sudden that's a 200 item level piece of gear that's going to be considerably more valuable to people on the auction house, and of course you can price it accordingly. So, armor, crafter's gear, that's all done. What is the other big thing that blacksmiths are going to make? They are going to make weapons. Finally, all of the weapons are given back to blacksmiths, at least for the most part. You get to make a whole bunch of different weapons, and they all follow the same sort of theory as the previous ones. You can add the item level increasement to them to get them up to... weapons appear to only go as high as item level 165. It doesn't currently appear that they're going to let you increase the item level on any of the weapons that you make to a higher point than 165. You do get weapon modifications as well, where you can then increase the attack power. These are like short-term buffs. These are coming back in Shadowlands. It's been a long time, I think almost since Burning Crusade, since we've seen these. But these are something that is going to be able to just have a stack of them in your bags. You apply them every time you go out and do some content, and it's going to give you that little bit of a stat increase, attack power by 20. Every little helps, especially when you're min-maxing. They're cheap to make, and they'll probably be on high demand. But now the big thing we should really talk about is going to be the Shadowghast gear. This is the base legendary items, and this is the only time within the blacksmithing profession where the ranking system is still in place. Blacksmithing is going to be quite an expensive profession to level up these legendaries with, and the demand for the higher ranked legendaries is going to be pretty steep at the beginning of the expansion. Shadowghast ingots are the main resource that blacksmiths are making. You can see if we go to reagents here, it actually requires one of each of the 4 zonal based ores. A little bit about mining. You can't talk about blacksmithing without talking about mining at least a little bit. Mining now has 6 different types of ores that are relevant in the game. 4 of those ores are zone specific, which is these 4 here, the Solinum, the Sinvir, the Phaedrum and the Oxane ore. They are all specific to one zone only, can only be mined in that one specific zone. Shadowghast ingots require 1 piece of ore from each of those zones to then only make 2 ingots. This is going to mean that these 4 types of ore are going to always be in demand by blacksmiths, because blacksmiths are always going to need them to make these ingots, because those ingots are needed in large quantities to craft these legendaries. When you start crafting these legendaries, you have to make 10 rank 1 legendary items before you unlock rank 2. You're going to then need to craft 20 rank 2s to unlock rank 3. You're then going to need to craft 20 rank 3 legendaries, and bearing in mind every time you increase the rank, the quantity of materials also increases. This is going to get very expensive if you want to be that blacksmith that has the ability to craft rank 4 legendary items. Rank 4 legendary items, which I believe have an item level of 235, which are going to be better than mythic level gear. So these are going to be highly sought after. Of course, if you know a little bit about the legendary system, it's going to take you quite a while to take that base item and have enough other resources to craft your final legendary item. But considering we're only able to equip one legendary item at the beginning of the expansion, people are going to focus in on one that they really want, and they're going to want to make that as good as possible. So blacksmiths are going to do quite well, I feel. They've got a good selection of gear that they can craft. A lot of that initial gear through is going to be really useful through leveling your main. It's going to be useful for leveling your alts. Even once you hit level 60, if you decide to craft yourselves up some crafter's marks, get that gear up to item level 200, that means you are basically crafting and able to sell raid quality gear. This is really good for blacksmiths, and hopefully will mean that if you pair it up with a profession, say like mining, which means that, I mean, you are going to be out and about in the world a lot. You're going to be doing your world quests, you're going to be running around, you're going to be doing a whole bunch of stuff. If you pair it up with mining, you're going to mine up a load of ore, you can use that ore to craft these items, and I reckon blacksmithing is going to be quite a profitable one. So I'm going to leave it there, guys. I don't want to go on too much about these in detail. I'm going to go over some of the other professions in detail, as there's a whole lot to choose from. There's quite a few changes. So if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.